Welcome to the second request. This one has a burger, it's a food stuff. So I hope I won't get hungry by the time I start doing this thing. I hope there's no business called foodie before they come and hold me now. Then we can have the body of the document. So let's go ahead and start the design. The design is going to start with a background of the body. Background color is orange. Not really orange like that, but I will choose what the color is. I can come and let's start doing preview. So the next thing I want us to do is to then provide a container. So I'm going to use the same method I used in the first request, and that will be ability for me to center my content. Class main, rather, since it's going to be one main, so that could be ID, and this one will contain quite a lot of stuffs. This is where I will have the logo, the menu, and the cards. So I can have a class and say header. In the header, there can be what I call the logo, the menu, and cards. Nothing so special. My menu looks something like this. Very strange. This is the design I was given. Then the logo will carry process guide logo. So let me go and get process guide logo here. That's the logo. I've not started doing CSS. I just want to write all the text out and I can then play with it later. Then I have my logo. I can also show you another way to bring in logo. Our logo can be brought in by just using a class without bringing the image like this. So there are so many methods you can use to bring your logo. So this can be our cards. Okay, let's start bringing some things to life. Your display here can be a grid. So I can place item in the center. Okay, so we have our item in the center. So your main, we also have background. Background color is something, yeah, I think that color was yellow. So the same thing is gonna have width of 80%, to display of grid. Template, I think this should be items. Okay, so moving on. We have that part set. We can then decide on how our logo should show, the header section should show. Our header can also be an ID anyway. Then I can make this an ID such that this can then be grid item elements. So this can be also a grid, but it will now have a template. 1FR, 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 such that save end. The menu can stay in the center. Then the logo itself, 110 px. Then you can specify that you don't want it to repeat. So let me see what's wrong with this image. Okay, the height is not stretching. That can be fixed later. The next part is that this needs to have a padding, some sort of a padding, and that is coming from the margin or the main. So that's okay. Then we need to say something about the height of the header, because the header it's cutting off from the image. So that needs to be fixed. We can fix that from the grid template row and just say 100. So that gives it the height of the row that is acceptable. So we are done with this header section here. And the next part is for us to do banner. Should I call it banner? Okay, let me call it banner because I have some things going on there. We're going to be having another div. Yeah, just call it text or caption one. Caption 1. This is gonna be delicious. So what I want to represent here is, first of all, let me first change the font of the entire site to something very fancy. Okay, let's do that. So our caption is going to be very bold. Caption 1. Nah, I think it should be H1 actually. It should be H1. So that's like 20%. Let's do 50% or 40%. Yeah, 40% font width is too bold. 300, 400, 500. So that's okay. Then I think we're good with this. Button at the bottom that says shop now. So of course we're gonna call it button. So we have, we don't need to put it on the banner, we just go ahead and style our button. So first of all, the color is, we're gonna use the color for the main. Yeah, that's this one. That's gonna be the color for the button. So that the background then be the background. Background color then be the background of this. And border radius. I think I'm using the wrong color here. So the color that I should be using should be brighter than the background actually. Yeah, I think that should be the color I should be using. You guys will see reason why. So this is what I should be using here and here. So this should be the color, should be brighter than this. Then the next thing I want to do is to create this. My menu needs to have that color. So if I come here and specify cards, everything in header should have that color. Now, the next thing I want to do is the image. There's an image I need to bring in. I need to look for an image of a burger. Let's go and do that. Burger. Burger. Let's do Google as well. Burger transparent image. Ah, okay. This is R in burger. So let's get this guy to give us a burger as well. And let's see who will do the honors. I hope this guy will not waste our time because I just want to get an image. So we're getting one in free picks. I trust this guy more. They are gonna deliver what they've said. Some of them are not truly transparent. Trust me. You just waste your time and you find out that they're not transparent. Well, I think this should be transparent. So we have this. You kidding me right now? 22. So we just go with the JPEG. Okay, so we have our picture here. I don't think it's not downloading the background I want it to download. Though. Let me look for the one that doesn't have background. So we have our burger here, kind of smoky burger. So let's say burger.png. So this our burger is gonna come inside here. So how do we put that inside there? We're gonna put it in the background of the main. It's gonna sit as the background of the main, as the main ID, which is here. So we're gonna go back and see how we can make that happen. And to be able to do this, and let me first try if we can do it without shorthand, so that will be more explicit. Burger. So we can actually implement what we want to do without having it separated. So we'll have it here. This way you can choose what you want to do. So our burger is going to be smaller. Of course, we don't want it to repeat. No repeat. Size, very important. So contain is not going to work. So we want it to sit in between here. So I can do cover is not going to work as well. Cover is going to take everything. Cover always takes everything. But you can modify your image such a way that you can use cover. But let's use contain, or we specify a particular width. You can specify a particular size. So contain is kind of small. So we can specify a particular size. Let me see what 1000 we do. So this is 1000. Let's use 800. Let's see. And you can also use percentage, by the way. So let's use percentage. 70% should do. Let's say 65%. Okay, so I want it to be in the middle. Again, I can also specify the height of what we want to do here, just like we specify in the previous request. So I'm looking like 40 is enough. Yeah, 500 is enough. So this can be, you can specify the positioning, background positioning, very important. So you can specify by how much you want the height of the burger should start from, or you can just say center. Center looks like 8. So you can just say center, center. So the more you increase the height, the more this item fits itself to the center of the site. So if this guy is increased, it will fit right in there. So we can just do something like this because we're having something still coming up again. But something is wrong with this guy now. You can see that this one is now centered. We don't want it centered. We want it to actually stay on top. We need to go and look for how to resolve that case. And that is under this section here, the banner section. We don't want the banner section to be centered. The banner section being centered is coming from the grid. So the grid that we added to main is affecting the content here. So we need to remove the grid in main. So I'll just comment it out. Once we remove that, our content is working well now. So the only part that we need to worry about having grid is in our header. So our content here can just, do what it needs to do. Okay, so the next part is for us to put digest here, one big digest here, and then we are done. So I have that is going to be at the bottom, and that's going to be bottom at the bottom of the main. So it's kind of like a footer kind of a thing, but it's going to be, so I'm going to call it class and give it footer. And I won't give it h1 or anything. So I'm going to call it digest. It's going to be a very big digest stuff. You guys are going to see it. So what I'm going to say here is just the same thing we did for footer in the other time, where we say that the position is absolute. Absolute, when you say something is absolute, I explained it in the previous class. When something is absolute, you mean that it can be anywhere depending on a relative object. So, and the relative object here is bottom, or rather is the body. So we can specify that the bottom should be 0. So because body is the relative, it jumps to body. But want the relative to be main. So you need to tell relative, or you need to tell main that it is now the relative, so that it will jump to the place it needs to jump to. So we say position relative. So that's what makes this one jumps here. Then we can go ahead and knock ourselves out. First of all, the color for the button is the color I'm using. So that's this color. That's what I'm going to use to specify the color of the footer. And the font, it's going to be a very big font. The font size, 100. In fact, it's going to be bigger than this. Minus 30, minus 40. This now is the very tricky part. How does the G get inside? I want this to be inside the texts, or inside like a pouch where this one will pocket itself inside here. So I want to make this part disappear, this bottom part. So what I need to do now is to create another mask for it here. So we can create a mask at the bottom here. And I can call it cover. So this mask will have the same feature of what the footer has. But of course, we now have, so this is what the mask has. But this time around, I'm going to give it a background. And the background is supposed to cover what it is that it has there. So the background color is going to match with this background of the site. So I can have that this way. Okay. So I don't need to specify a text, I presume, but I can specify a height. Okay, so I just put a dot there to identify what's going on. So that is me specifying an height, and that is my dot at the bottom, just to show that it's showing. So if I should remove my dot, the whole thing does not show. So this is where you can introduce a space. and it's not spaced like this because this will also not show. This is how to add space to HTML. So now that space is there. So for now, I will put a different color so that I can see the results before I change to the real color. So let me use red so that we can all see what the color of the background is. Okay, 100 gives us what it is that we want. So if we then use the color, that should give us everything. But first of all, I need to remove all these funny stuffs that's not needed. We don't need all these things on the styling for the mask. Okay, so that is it. And final review, let's review it again. So you have a main site or main ID, and the purpose is such that this one can be centered. I use the same method to center my content. My body, this having to be grid. I use place item to center anything I have it inside can be centered. So the main doesn't have to be grid. There's nothing going on in the main. I'm bringing in the border, bringing in everything from the bringing the burger in, bringing specifying that it shouldn't repeat, specifying the size of the burger, and saying that it should be in the center up, center right, like so. And that's what that one is doing. And I also specify some other things in the main. This is to determine where the content is starting from, this part here, and the height denotes the height of the whole thing, what's going on there. Oh, we didn't change this color to match the new change that we did because I changed the color of the body. So the mask needs to maintain that color. Another way to make the mask, okay, so yeah, so the mask now has the same color of that. Moving on to the header section, I implement grid for this header section to do this, thing here, 1, 2, 3, and just header, just say grid, implement the template. This one denotes the height of what we have here, but I think I removed it at some point. It worked. Okay, it's not working, so you need to put the 50px, and what that does is that it tells you that the height of the column of the row of what you have. This one here tells you the width of each of the column, while this one tells you the height. So if you have more rows, you can define the height by using grid template row. Then we specify the color of what should be on all those things there. The next thing is the logo. We just bring in the logo there. This one we justify center, justify right. And the footer, what it does, like the previous thing that we did before, we need to set it to absolute and make the main relative. The mask is such that we can cover up the overlapping texts that we have here. So the mask cover it for us using the same implementation that we use to make it to the bottom. What we just did was to offset the bottom more deeper to go into the ground. That's what we did there. Then the banner H1 is what we used to do, this one. And we didn't even style it to move to the right or not. So that one just works like that. So that's everything we have.